Did you know that the day after Thanksgiving was the National Day of Listening? This day was established in 2008 as an alternate way for us to connect with our loved ones and create meaningful memories. When was the last time you really listened to someone? Really listen without having to put your phone down, think about what you're going to say next, or interrupting with your own comments. And when was the last time someone really listened to you? Someone paid so much attention that their thoughtful comments made you feel really heard. The fact that you're here at a TEDx means you're interested in listening. So let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I went on a hiking trip to Japan. But this was no ordinary hike. I hiked with a 14th generation Yamabushi master, whose family had been training the samurai on how to survive in the wild. Yamabushi are mountain ascetic hermits, and the samurai were warriors, mainly known for their skills with swords and strong moral codes. For 5 days, my Yamabushi master and I, dressed in all white cotton clothes, white canvas shoes, carried a stick as we walked up and down the 3 sacred mountains of Sanzan. Each morning, we woke up at the crack of dawn and ate only a bowl of miso soup and steamed rice and headed to the mountains in silence. I was not permitted to brush my teeth, bathe, or talk. Not talking was not really a problem because my master only spoke Japanese and me English. The only thing I could respond was hi, meaning yes in Japanese. We took a vow of silence, so we had no conversation at all. And the silence was not just verbal, it was mental as well. I was not permitted to read a book, write a journal, watch TV, or even check the time. The silence was intentional, meant to slow down my mental chatter. It was a little difficult at first, but I started observing my surroundings. As we hiked through the mountains, I heard the birds warning us about the impending typhoon, the rustle between the winds, and the little creatures in the bushes. All my other senses were heightened, you could say. I also craved for a granola bar, a hot shower, and a back massage. But at the end of the 5 days, I felt stronger. I was one of the few non-Japanese speaking solo female travelers who had done the Yamabushi program and survived it. And at the end, I had this new tool to take with me as I traveled around the world: the sword of silence to slay my mental chatter. Interestingly, the Yamabushi program has become very popular among busy Japanese men and women who are often overstimulated by their surroundings. If you've been to Tokyo, you're probably familiar with the bright neon lights, the loud pachinko halls, the crowded Shibuya crossing, and the constant innovations in technology vying for our attention. The world is loud, and it's getting harder to escape the noise. Silent travel has gained momentum over the years, and people often take solo trips, hike in nature, or simply enroll in Vipassana, which is a silent meditation retreat. Sure, it's great to get away, even push your physical limitations, but we could all just try listening more and speaking less. Earlier this year, I was at Uluru, this giant red rock in the middle of Australia, also known as the spiritual heart of the country. There, I met an Agu traditional owner. As we walked around the base of Uluru, looking at ancient carved sites and water holes, he told me that the most important skill one has in their culture is listening. In fact, they teach the kids about their languages, culture, and history through storytelling. Stories are never written down. They're passed on verbally from generation to generation. Kids are given an easy version of the story until they go out and experience it and come back to receive a more advanced version. I also learned that the indigenous people are the first scientists of the world, and their discoveries are often written off as myths and legends. But through storytelling, they ensure that the right listener takes away the right message. I found this common thread of storytelling and listening across the world. In Tahiti, my guide took me to the home of his uncle, who further explained, the ocean is a vast fishing net, and each island in Polynesia, from Tahiti and Hawaii to New Zealand, is a knot in this net. While colonialism may have named each country differently, the people and the beliefs remain the same. Uncle started an organization in the Papino Valley of Papeete, through which stories are exchanged across different indigenous cultures around the world, so that we can understand the deeper meaning behind these legends. I asked Uncle about what he thought from sustainable travel, and he told me that in Tahitian language, there is no word for nature, because they never saw humans and environment as being different. I would not have known that unless I was listening to Uncle sitting in his backyard drinking coffee that day. As I traveled from the safaris of Africa, wandering through art galleries in Taos, New Mexico, or even having a romantic dinner by myself in the Amalfi Coast of Italy, I intentionally remained silent, meaning spoke less and listened more. I'm not saying you don't talk at all, and simply don't come across as not curious, unobservant, or self-absorbed. Traveling in silence simply means being fully present, free from unnecessary chatter, and connecting on a deeper level. As I stopped talking about my own life and reciting every detail of how hard it was for me to get here today, or making small talk about the weather, I opened up the space for a more meaningful interaction. And all you have to do is ask an open-ended question, sit back, and listen. Now, I'm a travel writer, so my job is to listen, ask good questions, and take notes. But I also don't interrupt the flow of the other person talking. Sometimes they may speak for hours, and that is totally fine. People open up more details about themselves when they feel that you're genuinely interested in hearing their story. There's another way to practice traveling in silence. I often find people talk over each other, jumping in to add their own story or an incident that they can relate to. Our minds can often think faster than we speak. So sometimes we assume we already know what the other person is going to say. But you can control yourself with practice and your urge about what you are going to say next. And a moment of silence does not have to feel awkward at all, but rather a moment for you to pause and connect with another person on a non-verbal level. Let me tell you about another story where traveling in silence worked in my favor. As I was driving through the villages in the hills of Rwanda, these group of little kids came running to the Jeep, smiling and waving goodbye. I was about to reach into my bag and take out some candy to give it out to them when my driver stopped me. He explained that giving a handout of any kind instills a value of receiving something for free, and the kids will grow up to think that it's okay to beg. I never even thought about it this way, as I've traveled to so many countries and places where people encourage giving gifts and donations. But my driver explained that Rwanda was changing its culture as an African nation. And they were looking for examples like Singapore and South Korea to instill more values of hard work, education, and zero tolerance for corruption. And travelers like myself had a role to play in this. He saw that I was interested in learning more, so during our drives, he introduced me to several of his friends who were entrepreneurs who shared their intimate stories of how they had left animal poaching to become conservationists and started ecotourism businesses and were giving back to their community. Now, there were other people, other travelers with me on this trip who did not get the same message because they were listening to music or talking among themselves during our long drives. They say that language connects us all, but I believe listening and silence does. Many religions promise inner peace and well-being just by observing silence. Neuroscience research also shows better health if you contemplate in silence because you have time to introspect and emotionally recharge. So when ancient cultures and modern sciences tell us that we mainly learn through listening, why do we feel that we add more value only when we speak? As I traveled in silence, I was able to hear more. I picked up on conversations and sounds, even emotions and cultural nuances that I otherwise wouldn't have. I felt that people were more eager to share their stories with me. As a result, I was able to listen, learn, document, and retell these stories from many underserved communities. Silence and travel are one of the best ways to discover ourselves. There are great rewards in traveling in silence. I've traveled to over 100 countries, and I certainly cannot remember every museum or monument that I've saw, but I felt their presence. As you put down your headphones and your devices, you start to hear more of your surrounding and pay more attention. You pick up on sounds of nature, of the environment, and they are able to navigate your instincts as you travel. Either it is through the busy streets of Rio de Janeiro or the jungles of Botswana. When you're not too busy talking to the person sitting next to you, you observe the decor, you hear the music, and even notice other people in the room. When you're not thinking about what Instagram story you're going to post next, you have time to reflect on creative ideas and profound thoughts from your travels. What if we all took this moment to silence our minds and our mouths and make an extra effort to pay more attention to those around us, our surroundings, and our inner selves? What if we, in our modern societies, looked at this ancient wisdom of listening? I believe that it will not only change how you perceive the world, but also how we all connect with each other across different nations, cultures, and nationalities. I end with this quote by Zen Buddhist monk and teacher Shunryu Suzuki. If your mind is empty, it is always ready for anything. Thank you.